I never thought a single mistake at work could rewrite my entire life, but that's exactly what happened the day I upset my boss, Ms. Adriana Vale. She wasn't just any boss. Adriana was the kind of woman who could silence a room with a single glance. Sharp suits, flawless hair, and a confidence that made everyone straighten up the second she walked in. I had worked under her for nearly 2 years, always careful, always respectful, until one stressful afternoon when everything went wrong. It started with a presentation, one I had spent days preparing. I thought I had everything perfect, but in my rush to finish, I overlooked a critical detail, an error in the numbers that made our department look careless. During the meeting, Adriana caught it instantly. Her eyes locked on me like lasers, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped. "Mr. Rahim," she said in a tone so cold it made my stomach tighten, "would you like to explain why these projections are 3 months outdated?" My mouth went dry. I stammered something about a miscommunication, but the truth was obvious. I had been careless, and now everyone in that boardroom knew it. The meeting ended with a polite but deadly smile from Adriana. "Stay after," she said softly. That was all. 2 words that felt like a sentence. When the others filed out, I stood frozen, heart pounding as she closed the door. "You embarrassed me," she began, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut. "Do you have any idea how much I rely on you to maintain this department's reputation?" I apologized again and again, but she wasn't interested in words. She leaned against the edge of the conference table, crossing her arms. "If you want to stay in this company, you'll need to learn a very specific lesson about precision, about respect, and maybe about humility." There was something in her eyes, a spark of amusement, like she was already planning something I couldn't imagine. That evening, she handed me a sealed envelope with instructions to meet her at her private office on Saturday morning. No explanation, no hint of what awaited me. I spent the next 2 nights tossing in bed, imagining every possible punishment, demotion, endless overtime, maybe even termination. But nothing could have prepared me for what she had in mind. When Saturday came, I arrived trembling. Her office smelled faintly of jasmine and expensive leather. She greeted me with a soft smile, too gentle to be comforting. "Good," she said, closing the door behind me. "You showed up. That's the first step." On her desk sat a large garment bag, glossy and mysterious. "Today," she continued, "you are going to experience what it means to pay attention to detail, in a way you've never imagined." She unzipped the bag and revealed something that made my breath catch. It wasn't a suit or a uniform, or anything remotely masculine. Inside was a carefully arranged outfit, delicate, elegant, undeniably feminine. I blinked, certain I had misunderstood. I don't. "Quiet," she said, not unkindly. "This is not a punishment in the way you think. This is an exercise. If you can follow every instruction without a single mistake, you will not only keep your job, you will earn my trust again." My mind spun with questions, protests, fears. But there was something hypnotic in her calm authority. Against every instinct I nodded. Adriana led me into her private dressing room, a space I hadn't even known existed behind her office wall. It was like stepping into a boutique. Mirrors, soft lighting, and racks of perfectly organized clothing. She laid out the outfit piece by piece. A silky blouse the color of champagne, a tailored skirt, sheer stockings, a pair of sleek ankle boots. "Every detail matters," she said. "Fabric, fit, posture. If you want to understand precision, you will start here." My hands trembled as I touched the fabric. It was soft, impossibly light, like a secret. Why this?" I whispered. Adriana tilted her head, studying me. "Because nothing teaches discipline like transformation. When you wear something unfamiliar, you must notice everything. The seams, the way it moves, the way you move. You cannot be careless. You cannot hide." Part of me wanted to run. Another part, a quiet, curious part, wondered what it would feel like to surrender to this strange lesson. With a small, steady nod, I agreed. Adriana's eyes softened, but her smile carried a challenge. "Good. Let's begin." Adriana closed the door behind us, and for a moment the world felt impossibly small. The dressing room was warm, softly lit, and so quiet that I could hear the faint hum of the ceiling lights above. My heartbeat filled the space. She walked toward a tall mirrored wardrobe and opened it with a slow, deliberate motion, revealing shelves of carefully folded garments, boxes, and accessories. Everything inside was organized with an elegance that almost intimidated me. "Clothes," she said, her tone calm but commanding, "are more than fabric. They tell a story. They demand precision. And today they will teach you discipline." Her eyes lingered on me as she handed me a thin, cream-colored camisole. "This is where we start. Layer by layer, you will learn to notice every detail." My fingers brushed the fabric. It was impossibly soft, cooler than I expected, like a whisper against my skin. I hesitated, unsure how to even hold it. Adriana tilted her head, almost amused. "Attention to detail begins with how you handle what is in front of you," she said. "Fold it properly. Examine the seams. Feel the texture. No rushing." I obeyed, unfolding the camisole slowly, running my fingertips along the delicate stitching. Every thread was perfect, every edge neat. She nodded faintly, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "Good. Now put it on." The words sent a jolt through me. I turned my back, but she stepped closer. "No hiding," she said gently. "Transformation requires presence. Face the mirror. Watch yourself." With a dry throat and trembling hands, I slipped my arms through the straps. The fabric slid across my shoulders like a secret I wasn't supposed to know. It was strange, alien, yet strangely calming, like stepping into a role I didn't understand but couldn't resist. The reflection staring back at me looked both familiar and completely foreign, a man in the first stage of something unnameable. Adriana's eyes studied me carefully. "Already you stand differently," she observed. "Do you feel it?" I nodded, barely breathing. "Good. Precision changes more than appearance. Changes awareness. Every movement matters now." Next came the stockings. She handed me a pair so sheer they looked like captured light. "No snags," she instructed. "Smooth, even, deliberate." I focused on each motion, rolling the delicate fabric inch by inch, terrified of tearing it. My heartbeat slowed, my breathing steadied, and for the first time that day, my mind was utterly clear. When both legs were covered in a soft, subtle shimmer, Adriana smiled. "Better. You are beginning to understand." Then came the blouse, a champagne silk that gleamed softly in the warm light. As she helped guide my arms through the sleeves, the fabric cooled against my skin, sending a ripple of sensation I couldn't quite name. She buttoned it herself, each click of the small pearl buttons impossibly loud in the quiet room. With every fastened button, I felt something inside me shift, like layers of hesitation peeling away. Finally, she brought the skirt, a tailored piece of deep charcoal that carried the quiet authority of her own wardrobe. "Precision," she reminded me, handing it over. "Every fold must align. Every seam must sit perfectly." I stepped into it carefully, adjusting until the waistband settled against my hips. Adriana circled me slowly, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Not bad," she murmured. "But you're holding yourself like you want to disappear. Tantal. Own it." Her words struck deeper than I expected. I straightened, lifting my chin. The reflection that stared back at me was still undeniably me, yet something was changing. My stance was different, poised, intentional, almost graceful. Adriana's lips curved into a faint smile. "Now we're getting somewhere," she said softly. "But clothes are only half the lesson. The rest," she added, reaching for a small vanity drawer, "is about detail that no one notices until it's perfect." She held up a slim makeup brush, its bristles catching the light. My breath caught. "Makeup," I whispered. "Not to disguise you," she said calmly, "but to teach you patience. A single careless stroke ruins everything. Precision, Rahim. That's what today is about." She guided me to the vanity chair, her voice steady as she explained each motion. "Foundation," she said, dabbing lightly. Blend. No harsh lines. Watch how the light changes. Her fingers were gentle but exact, her instructions sharp yet soothing. I followed every direction, focusing so hard on each detail that the outside world faded away. As she brushed a faint shimmer across my eyelids, she leaned close enough that I caught the soft scent of jasmine. "Discipline," she whispered, almost like a secret. "It's not punishment. It's transformation. And transformation requires trust." Something in her tone sent a shiver through me. Not fear, but a strange kind of calm. I realized I wasn't thinking about the mistake I'd made or the embarrassment of the meeting. I was thinking only of this moment, of her steady voice, of the quiet thrill of becoming something unexpected. When she finally stepped back, she let out a slow breath. "Look," she said. I turned to the mirror. The person staring back was still me, but softened, refined. My jawline seemed sharper yet less severe. My eyes looked wider, almost luminous. It wasn't disguise. It was possibility. Adriana watched me carefully. "Tomorrow, you will walk into work with the same precision," she said. "Every report, every number, every word, flawless. Because now you know what it means to pay attention." I swallowed hard, unable to speak. "This," she continued, gesturing to my reflection, "isn't just about clothes. It's about the power of detail. Never forget how it feels to care this much." I nodded slowly, the weight of her lessons settling into me like a promise. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end of my transformation. It was only the beginning. Adriana let the silence stretch, her eyes never leaving mine as I stared at the reflection. My breath slowed, but inside, a storm of questions raged. Why did this feel so strangely steady? Why wasn't I clawing for an escape? She stepped closer, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. "You're wondering why this matters," she said quietly. "Because discipline isn't only about numbers. It's about carrying yourself with intention. Every glance, every step, every breath. The clothes simply reveal what's already inside you." Her words settled over me like a quiet challenge. I looked back at my reflection and saw the truth in her eyes. My posture was deliberate now. My movements careful. The mistakes that had once seemed harmless felt distant, small. I wasn't just dressed differently. I was thinking differently. "Stand up," Adriana instructed. Her tone was soft but absolute. I obeyed without hesitation. She circled me again, adjusting the fall of the skirt, smoothing the sleeve of the blouse with a touch that was brisk yet oddly reassuring. "Precision," she murmured. "Always." She stepped back and nodded toward the hallway. "Now," she said, "you walk." Blinked. "Walk. Through the office floor. With me. The staff isn't here on weekends, but the space still demands presence. You will walk with the awareness of every detail, the sound of your steps, the sway of fabric, the balance of your frame. If you can hold your focus out there, you can hold it anywhere." Chill ran through me. The idea of stepping outside the safety of the dressing room felt terrifying. But Adriana's gaze was steady, patient. "This is not humiliation," she said. "It is practice. Trust the process." I took a deep breath and followed her out. The corridor beyond her private office was quiet, echoing faintly with the hum of air conditioning. Each step in the sleek ankle boots felt different from the shoes I wore every day, lighter yet demanding more care. I focused on each movement, the way the skirt brushed against my legs, the way the silk blouse shifted with my breath. "Slow," Adriana said gently behind me. "Every step is a decision. Let the sound guide you." The polished floor amplified every click of my heels. At first the sound felt foreign, even jarring. But as I settled into the rhythm, something unexpected happened. My mind emptied of everything but the pattern of movement. Step, breathe, balance. Step, breathe, balance. Each motion felt precise, intentional. Adriana walked beside me, her own stride confident and fluid. "You see," she said softly, "awareness creates power. No wasted motion. No careless thought." We reached the far end of the hallway, where tall windows revealed the quiet city beyond. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow across the polished glass, catching faint reflections of the two figures standing side by side. Adriana, poised and commanding, and me, transformed yet unmistakably myself. She turned to face me. "Tell me what you notice." I hesitated, then spoke slowly. "The floor is colder than I expected. The air feels sharper near the windows. The skirt, it moves differently when I breathe. And the shoes, they force me to stand straighter or I lose balance." A small smile curved her lips. "Excellent. Details. You're beginning to see the world instead of rushing through it." For a long moment we stood in silence, the city below us a soft blur of lights and motion. I felt strangely grounded, more aware of my own body than I had ever been in my life. Adriana finally spoke. "Tomorrow you will return to the office as you always do. Your usual clothes, your usual duties. But I expect the same precision you found today. This isn't about wearing silk and heels. It's about carrying the lesson inside you." I nodded, but she wasn't finished. "However," she continued, her voice lowering just enough to draw me in, "this isn't the last time you'll wear these clothes. If you agree, we will continue this exercise. Each session will refine your focus, deepen your discipline, and reveal more of the self you hide behind routine." The offer sent a ripple of emotion through me. Fear, curiosity, something else I couldn't name. "Why me?" I asked softly. Adriana studied me for a long moment. "Because you have the capacity to change. Most people resist. You hesitate, but you don't run. That's rare." Her words struck something deep inside. I thought of the careless mistake that had started this, the sleepless nights of dread, the unexpected calm I felt now. Age, precision, awareness. Maybe this wasn't punishment at all. Maybe it was a doorway. Adriana reached into a small cabinet and produced a slim leather folder. "Inside is your next assignment," she said, handing it to me. "Numbers, reports, but also something else. A written reflection on today's lesson. I expect both by Monday morning." I took the folder, its smooth surface cool against my fingertips. "One more thing," she added, her eyes catching mine in the fading light. "Do not let fear define you. Precision is not about perfection. It's about presence. Remember that." I nodded again, a quiet determination building where panic had once lived. As she guided me back toward the dressing room, I caught one last glimpse of my reflection in the hallway glass. The person looking back at me was dressed in silk and charcoal, but the change ran deeper than fabric. There was a steadiness in my eyes, a quiet strength I hadn't seen before. When Adriana finally helped me out of the outfit and back into my everyday clothes, I expected the feeling to vanish. But it didn't. Even as the fabric changed, the awareness remained, like a soft, persistent echo. "Monday," she said with a small, knowing smile as I left. "We'll see if you've learned to carry it with you." As I stepped into the cool evening air outside the building, the city felt sharper, more alive. Every sound, every breeze, every flicker of light seemed to hold meaning. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was simply moving through the world. It felt present. Monday morning arrived with a nervous electricity I couldn't shake. The city outside my apartment window looked sharper somehow, as if every color and shadow had been quietly turned up overnight. I dressed in my usual office clothes, a crisp shirt, tailored trousers, polished shoes, but the memory of Saturday clung to me like a second skin. I could still feel the glide of silk against my arms, the soft pressure of the skirt at my waist, the quiet rhythm of each careful step. Walking into the office felt different. The same elevator, the same hallway, the same desks, but I noticed things I had never seen before. The way the sunlight filtered across the conference room glass. The faint scent of coffee drifting from the break room. The subtle scuff marks on the floor tiles. My senses were awake, and with them came an unexpected calm. At my desk, the leather folder Adriana had given me rested beside my keyboard, a silent reminder of the assignment inside. I opened it carefully. The first pages held spreadsheets and projections, Tasks that once felt like tedious math but now looked like a challenge of precision. Beneath the papers, a single sheet of thick cream stationery held a handwritten note. Details create trust. Presence creates power. Show me both. I took a deep breath and began. Hours passed in a steady rhythm of numbers and careful checks. I cross-referenced every figure twice, sometimes 3 times, refusing to let even the smallest inconsistency slip by. Normally I might have rushed to finish, but today speed felt meaningless. The lesson of Saturday whispered in every movement. Slow down, notice everything, own each decision. By noon I felt more focused than I had in months. The numbers lined up perfectly. No careless gaps. No hidden errors. I placed the finished reports back into the folder and turned to the second task. My written reflection. At first, the words came haltingly. How could I explain what had happened without sounding ridiculous? Slowly, the sentences took shape. I wrote about the feel of fabric, the discipline of movement, the startling clarity that came from surrendering to something unfamiliar. I described the way each layer of clothing demanded attention, how every small action, buttoning a blouse, rolling a stocking, blending a brushstroke, forced me to see the world instead of rushing through it. When I finished, I read it twice, correcting tiny imperfections until the page felt balanced and precise. Only then did I slide it back into the folder and carry it to Adriana's office. Her door was closed. I knocked lightly. "Enter," came her voice, smooth and controlled. She looked up as I stepped inside, her sharp eyes scanning me with quiet calculation. Today she wore a charcoal suit with a silk scarf knotted at her throat, the same effortless authority she carried every day. But now I noticed the delicate details. The faint sheen of the fabric, the exact angle of the scarf, the subtle choice of earrings that matched the color of her eyes. "You're early," she said, accepting the folder. "I finished," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. She opened the folder and began reading, first the numbers, then the reflection. The room fell silent except for the soft rustle of pages. I stood perfectly still, every muscle alert, every breath measured. Finally she looked up. "Impressive," she said simply. "Not one error. And this reflection?" She tapped the page lightly. "You understood more than I hoped." A quiet warmth spread through my chest. Adriana closed the folder and leaned back in her chair. "Tell me," she said. "How do you feel?" I considered the question carefully. "Focused." "Where?" Like I'm actually here, instead of just moving through tasks." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Good. That is presence. Most people live their lives half asleep. You are learning to wake up." I hesitated, then added, "It's strange though. Saturday felt like more than a lesson. It changed something." Adriana studied me for a long moment. "Change is the point," she said softly. "Clothes are only symbols. The transformation is in the discipline." "But," she added, a glint of something unreadable in her eyes, "symbols have power, which is why we are not finished." A quiet thrill of nerves ran through me. Not finished. She rose from her chair, her movements smooth and deliberate. Saturday was the first step. Precision begins with awareness, but mastery requires repetition. If you agree, we will continue. Each session will push you further, reveal more, demand more. I swallowed hard. What would that involve? Adriana tilted her head thoughtfully. Deeper exercises. Not just wearing clothes but learning posture, balance, expression. Carrying presence into public spaces. Perhaps even presentations where you must maintain the same poise no matter how others react. The idea sent a flicker of fear through me, but alongside it came an unexpected spark of excitement. The thought of stepping into a world that required such focus, such control, felt intoxicating. "You don't have to decide now," she said, reading my hesitation. "But if you choose to continue, it will not be easy. Discipline never is. It will demand time, patience, and the courage to see yourself without the usual masks." I met her gaze. "And if I refuse?" Her smile was small but kind. "Then you will keep your job. You will return to routine. But you will know that you walked away from something rare. Silence stretched between us. The hum of the city beyond the windows seemed louder, as if the world itself waited for my choice. I'll continue, I said at last, the words surprising even me. Adriana's eyes softened, though her posture remained perfectly controlled. Good, she said simply. Then we begin again this Saturday. Wear comfortable clothes. Bring nothing else but your attention. As I left her office, the weight of the decision settled over me. Not heavy but thrilling, like stepping onto a path I hadn't known existed. The ordinary buzz of the office sounded sharper, the colors of the city brighter. I realized I wasn't nervous anymore. I was curious. Saturday felt impossibly far away. Yet as I walked back to my desk, the quiet echo of silk and the click of careful steps followed me, a promise of the next transformation to come. Saturday arrived with a restless anticipation that left me wide awake before sunrise. All week I had carried the quiet awareness Adriana had awakened in me. The way my shoes touched the pavement, the faint textures of paper beneath my fingertips, the rhythm of breathing through each task. Now, as I stood in front of my apartment mirror, I felt the familiar nervous energy of stepping toward something unknown. I dressed simply as she had instructed. Plain trousers, a soft gray shirt, nothing that could distract from the lesson. The morning air outside was cool and sharp, carrying the scent of rain on concrete. Each step toward the office seemed to echo louder than usual, as though the city itself knew where I was heading. Adriana's private office was quiet when I arrived, the hallway lights dimmed for the weekend. She opened the door before I could knock, as if she had been waiting. Today she wore a deep navy suit, her hair pinned in a sleek twist, a silver pendant catching the faint light. Even before she spoke, her presence filled the room with calm authority. "Right on time," she said, a note of approval threading through her voice. "Good. Punctuality is precision." On the desk behind her rested another garment bag, larger than the one from last week. My stomach tightened, but instead of fear, a strange excitement stirred inside me. "Today," Adriana began, "we move beyond awareness. Today you will learn control, how to carry composure in motion, how to hold grace under pressure. Details will guide you, but you must also command them." She unzipped the bag and revealed a carefully arranged ensemble, a tailored cream dress with soft pleats, a pair of elegant low-heeled shoes, a light shawl in muted rose. The fabrics shimmered faintly in the warm light, each piece balanced between simplicity and quiet beauty. "You will dress," she said calmly. "But this time I will not guide each step. You will prepare yourself, remembering everything you learned. Every seam, every fold, every breath must be deliberate." I nodded, my heart hammering as she gestured toward the dressing room. Inside, the familiar soft lighting wrapped around me like a quiet challenge. I laid each piece on the vanity with slow care, remembering the lessons of the first session. Examine every detail, move with intention, breathe. The dress felt cool and smooth as I slid it over my shoulders, the fabric settling around me with a weightless precision. I checked each seam, each button, each subtle line until everything aligned perfectly. When I emerged, Adriana's eyes scanned me with quiet intensity. "Better," she said after a long pause. "Your posture tells me you paid attention." A faint warmth of pride stirred in my chest. "Now," she continued, "movement. Follow me." She led me into the long hallway outside her office. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, spilling across the polished floor. "Today you will walk not as a student, but as someone who belongs in this space," she said. "Every step must be balanced, every gesture deliberate. Precision is not stiffness, it is confidence." I began to walk, conscious of each shift of fabric, each measured click of the low heels against the floor. The dress moved softly around my knees, the shawl whispered against my shoulders. With every careful stride, my breathing slowed until the world seemed to narrow into a single steady rhythm. "Good," Adriana said quietly behind me. "Now add awareness of others. Imagine this hallway is crowded. Eyes watching. Conversations around you. Hold your presence." Her voice wove through the empty space, guiding me like a steady current. I imagined the office alive with people, the hum of voices and the weight of unseen gazes. The thought should have made me falter, but instead it sharpened my focus. My spine lengthened, my steps grew smoother, each movement a quiet assertion of control. Adriana stepped beside me, her own stride flawless. "This," she said softly, "is what most people never master. They hide in routine, rush through life, miss every chance to be fully seen. Precision demands courage." Her words sank deep. I realized that what I felt wasn't humiliation, it was empowerment. Each careful movement wasn't a mask. It was a choice. After several circuits of the hallway, she led me back inside. The next exercise was posture and gesture. Adriana demonstrated small, subtle movements, turning with a controlled pivot, lifting a glass with poised fingers, sitting without disturbing the flow of fabric. I mirrored each motion, focusing on balance and breath until the actions felt almost natural. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The world outside faded until only the lesson remained. Movement, awareness, control. By the time Adriana finally called a pause, my mind felt both exhausted and astonishingly clear. "You've improved," she said, her voice carrying a quiet pride. "Your focus is stronger. Your movements have purpose. Tell me, what do you feel?" I searched for words. "Calm," I said finally. "Strangely confident. Like every action matters." Adriana nodded. "Because it does. Precision is respect for yourself, for the space you occupy. Most people live carelessly. You are learning to live deliberately." She handed me a slim notebook bound in soft leather. "This is for your observations," she said. "Carry it with you. Record every moment you notice a detail others might miss. Bring it next week." As I changed back into my everyday clothes, I caught one last glimpse of myself in the mirror. The transformation was subtle yet unmistakable. Even without the dress, my posture remained poised, my breathing steady. The lessons were no longer confined to fabric. They were becoming part of me. Adriana met me at the door as I left. "Next time," she said, her eyes bright with a quiet challenge, "we test what you have learned in the outside world. Prepare yourself." The words lingered as I stepped into the cool evening air. The city stretched out before me, alive with sounds and colors I had never fully noticed before. For the first time I felt not just present but powerful, aware of every choice, every breath, every step. The next morning I woke up before the alarm, my heart thudding with a kind of nervous excitement that felt almost unreal. Sunlight filtered through my curtains, painting faint gold stripes across the wall, and for a brief second I wondered if everything that had happened over the last few weeks was a dream. But then I looked at the neatly arranged outfit hanging on the wardrobe door. A soft cream blouse, a tailored pastel skirt, and a delicate necklace that sparkled faintly in the morning light, and I knew this was no dream. It was my life now, and today was the day that life would finally meet the world outside the office walls. When I arrived at work, Ms. Rivera was waiting for me in her office. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she simply studied me with a look of quiet pride. I stood there, my hands trembling slightly against the silky fabric of the blouse, feeling her eyes trace every careful detail of my presentation. The makeup I had applied with painstaking care, the smoothness of my hair, the way the skirt fell just above my knees. I had done all of it myself this time. No one had dressed me this morning. No one had guided me. And yet everything felt exactly right. "You've come a long way," she finally said, her voice soft but firm. "Do you realize how far?" I swallowed hard and nodded. I think I do. "You don't need my approval anymore," she continued. "That's the real change. I helped you see something, but you did the work. You built the courage." Her words settled into me like a warm current, melting away the last of the fear I had been carrying. I wanted to thank her, to explain how she had given me a kind of strength I hadn't known I possessed, but the words refused to come. Instead, I just met her eyes and let a small, genuine smile spread across my face. She seemed to understand everything I couldn't say. Later that afternoon, Ms. Rivera called a small team meeting in the lounge. I nearly panicked when she gestured for me to join her at the front of the room. I could feel every gaze turning toward me, but instead of the sharp sting of anxiety I expected, there was only a steady calm. "This is Alex," she began, using my chosen name without hesitation. "I want you all to know that what you're seeing is the result of hard work, honesty, and courage. We value authenticity here, and today is proof of why that matters." A quiet murmur rippled through the group. Then one by one my co-workers smiled, nodded, and offered words of support. Some were small, just a quick "you look great" or "proud of you," but each one felt like a door swinging open. I wasn't hiding anymore. When the meeting ended, Ms. Rivera pulled me aside. "Remember," she said, her eyes warm but serious, "this isn't about clothes. It's about you claiming yourself. Keep that in your heart." That night, I walked home alone under a sky streaked with violet and rose. The city lights shimmered like scattered jewels, and with each step I felt something inside me settle into place. The silk of my skirt whispered softly with the rhythm of my stride, a sound that no longer embarrassed me but instead felt like music. I thought back to the day it all began, the mistake that had left Ms. Rivera furious, the humiliation of her finding me in those clothes, the fear that she would destroy my career. I could hardly recognize the person I was back then, a bundle of shame and excuses, terrified of being seen. Now I was walking through the world as myself, no longer defined by anyone else's expectations. This wasn't just a story about crossdressing. It was about discovery, about shedding layers of fear until only the truth remained. And as I reached my apartment door and turned the key, I felt an overwhelming gratitude, not just for Ms. Rivera's guidance, but for the strange twist of fate that had forced me to face what I'd been avoiding for so long. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was playing a part. I wasn't dressing to please anyone. I wasn't hiding behind a persona. I was simply me. And as the night wrapped around the city, I whispered a quiet promise to myself, to keep walking forward, to keep exploring, and to never again apologize for who I was becoming. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel.